Why are you scared of perfection? If you've noticed, there has been big trends in the recent years about breaking down the stereotypical template of perfection, in that people started to kind of like shy away from showing perfection, from embracing perfection. There seemed to be a kind of fear about it because perhaps it tied them to a limited label where they had to be judged by others in order to excel or in order to feel accomplished. However, if you think about perfection in the cosmic sense of the world, there has to be a frequency of perfection surrounding us all as the divinity of the universe, and through the order, through the laws, through the grace of ascension, evolution, spirituality, the amalgamation of them all, the concepts of growth. So I would say don't be afraid of perfection. Don't be afraid of the possibility, of the potential that you have to master a craft, to master a hard subject, to achieve your dreams, to connect with the timeline of perfection, because you never know what you'll find.
If you think about it, when I first started this journey, when I really got serious about what was going on in the spiritual world, my first question was, what is ether? I found my answer. Ether is fear. It is an igniter. It is the in between. It is a medium that you have to get out of anger or to transmute anger or to get out of anxiety. So once that igniter is hit, then you can transmute those emotions into a more constructive, a passionate anger would be more on the preferable side of transmuting those things into something constructive. We need courage, which lives in the mind, to get out of anxiety.
So it's about doing some neuroplasticity work too. You're building new neural pathways. So I had a client who, went through a very relationship, but she didn't even know like what kind of ice cream she liked. And so the neuroplasticity was about just go to the grocery store and pick out an ice cream. See if you like it. Don't judge yourself if you get it and you don't like it. Like that's kind of the simplest kind of example I can use of how you start to build self trust. It's about what you like, what feels good, um, but it's a brain issue, and it's hard to rebuild that. It takes time.
A structure which will reach a goal as direction, but also a structure which doesn't stifle the feminine. Okay, so it's not healthy for the masculine to be so rigid that the feminine can't flourish and thrive and inhabit her chaos. And it's not healthy for the feminine to be so chaotic that it's completely unanchored from the masculine or from order. We were in a world in the 19 teens and 20s, like the trad life that people are trying to get back to with social media. That's strict order, right? There's not a lot of room for chaos. There's not a lot of room for feminine wildness, I guess you could say. It's complete masculine structure. Marriage is completely masculine. It's rigid. The household roles are completely rigid. The business world is completely rigid. That's all order. Pendulum swung. Chaos rebelled against the order because it was stifled and needed to spread its wings. Breathe.
It's like the ocean is not every day destroying towns with tidal waves and floods and hurricanes and weather. Some days it's sunny and the skies are blue and the sea is calm. And some days you're getting tossed and you're holding on for dear life. And grief is very much an ocean. And some days are good and some days are bad, which is why when we're in that spin cycle, going into the why is this happening is often a very, very, very big contributor to being stuck. Because even if we answered, why am I tumbling in the wave? You're still tumbling in the wave. A better question is, what are my choices? What do I have the capacity and the option to do right now in service of my own wellness? That's a much better question than why is this happening? I don't know why. Sometimes we know why, because people are doing stupid things, because someone else's free will has now made my life a nightmare. But The why is not a helpful question. It just keeps us insightfully stuck. So what are my choices? What are my options? What's my capacity? That keeps us moving forward.
Before I went through my particular challenges, I thought everything was outward. I thought happiness was an outward thing. I thought when you had like that certain house, you had a certain status symbols, all this type of stuff that brought happiness within. I had no knowledge or understanding that it was the other way around. And so when you go through that journey and you understand that, and you actually realize that happiness is very much an inside job, and you can have all the, and not saying that it's a bad thing. I think, having, stuff which you like is great. And if you have a large house or all this type of stuff, it's great to have, but it's not going to make you happy. You can, I did something earlier today where, on a post where, one of the unhappiest I've been is when I had a lot of those things. I was like holidaying in Dubai in great 5-star resorts, all this type of stuff, and actually felt really empty and lonely and unhappy inside. And then other times when I've been on a tent in halfway up Kilimanjaro with absolutely nothing, hadn't showered for days, felt broken. And actually felt, probably one of the happiest I've felt.
There's really one thing that psychologically motivates me, whether I'm writing, interviewing people, coaching people, whatever it is that I'm doing, it all derives from my desire to contribute. Contribution is my greatest value of why I do the things that I do.
That's so beautiful. And I feel like that's the epitome of a self-leader. It's like, a self-leader is that vessel that has to channel different kinds of timelines and waves of thought and experience. So it is very interesting. And how would you define a self-leader?
For me, all leadership starts with self. And to be honest, I find that every kind of answer that I'm giving people to pretty much every question, I take it back to your ability to relate to self. The beautiful thing is,
right, because I grew up in the arts. I sang, I did background vocals for artists, but my passion was dance, and it still is. And I believe the mindfulness part for me was literally a soft escape from the performative world where I was being pulled on. And I think this gets into some of the questions even in our agenda. But the mindfulness part of understanding how you show up in a space of intimacy is very, very important when you are talking about being authentic. And in the world of dance, I concur with you that there's so many myriad. It's a myriad of emotions. It's a myriad of what we call it canvases, right? We are a canvas, right? When you're performing, your body is a canvas, and the way that you become one with music, when you become one with dance, right? When you become one, even with the choreographer, right? There is so much more than just coming to practice.
The stars are basically the map to who you are.
Yeah, totally. And how did you get involved in this whole astrology journey of teaching and guiding people?
So I first got into astrology, I think I was in like the 6th grade or something, 5th or 6th grade. And we were learning about ancient Greece. And, it was all about astrology, because they created that whole system and everything. And I was just fascinated with it and picked it up. And it was like riding a bike almost. It just naturally came to me. And yeah, I just started reading about different signs and stuff. I mean, I was younger then, of course. So it was just sun signs and stuff. And then as I got into my teens, I was going through something, rather dark and stuff, and used it for my own healing, just really understanding who I was. And then also the behavior patterns of others, like what provokes people to do these things, And, astrology can be related a lot